Hey, what's up, guys? It's Reed for TransformPoker.com, and today I'm going to be checking out a short-handed hand where we call a re-raise out of position. So, first off, you guys are going to see that the format for this hand is a little dry. I apologize, but I think it's a pretty cool spot, so I figured we would just kind of forge ahead here. We open raise on the cutoff to 3 big blinds, and the button re-raises. So that's pretty common in a lot of aggressive games, and I think this pre-flop call is fine. These suited Broadway hands are nice because they flop a lot of top pair hands that are pretty good, um, and they're not as susceptible to overcard turns and rivers as other hands like 9-8 suited or something like that. So we can take our pair to showdown a bit more often. And then we have the ability to float or semi-bluff a little bit post-flop as well. So you can see that actually kind of happens this hand where we flop an open-ended straight draw and 2 overcards. So I think a lot of the temptation that newer players have to playing these out of position spots and re-raise pots is that with a lower stack to pot ratio, um, your semi-bluff actually is a lot more important because your equity gets realized a lot more often. So you could just check shove here, for instance, and realize your equity. And by that I mean that you won't be bet folding queen jack because that would be bad since we have so much potential for the turn and river. You could really do better by check calling here, I think, than by check raise bluffing and then folding to a jam, which I think is kind of what gets set up in this hand. Maybe this player wasn't considering folding to a jam, but I just don't think you have enough equity against your opponent's jamming range to do very well check raising and then calling it off. Like a lot of the time he'll have kings or aces and your overcards aren't live, so you're just getting it in with a bare open ender. A lot of the times he'll have a flush draw and your draw is still dominated. So you're really looking at some dirty outs and not good pot odds, best case scenario. So that's not good. So let's think about like other lines that we could take. I would say that this is probably a good spot just to go ahead and lead the flop. And it's not something that I would recommend doing a lot of the time in re-raised pots, especially at middle stakes because people are a bit continuation bet happy. But this is pretty much the king of connected boards as far as board texture goes. So your opponent isn't necessarily going to be continuation betting a ton of hands that you can check raise bluff on the flop and have him fold. A lot of the time he's just going to have something, like queens or kings and be ready to go with it, or a hand with a lot of equity himself, and then just decide that there's so much money in the pot, like why not move all in? And when he does that, we're in a tough spot with queen jack. So rather than check raise, I think leading, and then we have the option to 3-bet all in. Should we deem it prudent? I guess that's a good word for it. Should we deem it a good play? Which I think we would. Otherwise, like I said earlier, we'd be better off check calling. So I think leading here is nice because we get to align the board texture being bad for our opponent and the ability to realize our equity. So that's kind of the theme of this hand. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section and what you think a good leading range for the flop would be. And I'll see you guys next time.